So that was a quick break, and I hope everyone is feeling good about this wonderful functions making our lives easier, right? So now after our break, let's carry on. Try to see if I can finish this in 30 minutes, but practice is the key that we need to get. Actually, I need to refresh this. It's probably going to give me an error. All right, so what questions do you have from what we've covered so far? Go for it, Aaron.
I'm good. As I said, just writing 5 lines of code that is working. It's crazy for me. So.
Okay. Yeah, again, Python doesn't have to be complicated. You know, we said it's better for it to be complex than complicated. What we have here is complex, but it's not complicated. We broke it down bit by bit. And just like we said, we just grabbed this from the other file, the functions file. Another team could have been working on that. We don't need to understand what they were working. We don't need to know anything. They'll just tell us, hey, you know that this function gets a user input and outputs an integer. Totally fine with us. We can go ahead and use it. Okay. So another thing I want to tell you is functions actually have modules. So we could have gone in and just go ahead and, oops, let me make this bigger. We could have gone ahead and instead of copying that file over, let me make sure that it's correct on here. Yeah, I need to make sure that I update it on this other side. Let me just copy it over. So another team was working on this, and we have that. Nope, I did not copy it. Copy that and paste it. There you go. Awesome. So now I have name of input. If I have this file in here, it is saved. Control S, and I have this file in here. I don't need to reinvent the wheel and type it again. Okay. With Python, all I can do is import functions.py. So it's importing this file. If it has imported the file, all I need to do is instead of enter input, I'm having an error. If I go ahead and type functions, enter input, it works just fine. So it's telling me that go into this functions file and get that enter input function that you created. So it's the same thing for the rest of the other ones. Let me press enter so I can see it. And press enter in here. Oops, error. I need to put it in front of it. And also do an enter in here. So that's pretty much all that modules are. Okay. Now a library is going to have an entire folder maybe of all these separate files. So one team already worked on it. They told us, guys, you know what? If you need to get an input and change the input to an integer, go ahead and import our function. And there's a function in there that says blah 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 blah, and you execute this, it should run just fine. Okay, so let's drag this back up, and you should be good. Yes, question.
Yes, if that function .py was in another folder, maybe one step down,
yeah,
would you still call it the same way?
Very good. If it was one step down, you have to probably use hierarchical, which is something that we're going to talk about very shortly, though.
Okay, that's fine. Then I'll just wait for it.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So in that case, it becomes a package, and then you can sort it out and see, for example, when we look at the math library, the math library has various different modules in there. You can have math.py to give you the pi that we use for pi radio square. You can have math.random, which is what we're going to use to be able to randomly select numbers that we'll be able to use for our rock, paper, scissors program. So very good question. But I just wanted to demonstrate this to you very quickly. And I'm having an error message, but that's probably because I'm not having an input somewhere. So let's execute this. Yep, that's an error message, one required in the position name of input. Why do I not have it? So it's saying I should go into page 5. In here, name of input. Oh, I see, because I called it here and I didn't use it. So I didn't need to call that in there. Let me go ahead and comment those out. And then I should be good. Yep, so I don't need to call my function in there. Save that. And then come back to my keyword arguments and execute. So enter pay, $50. John has entered an input, enter regular hours. Let's say this time they did not do overtime, 38 hours or overtime, and they made 1900. Okay. So again, that's how easy you can do it. But let's carry on and go back to our presentation for today. A few things that I had to point out. So we've looked at, oopsie, why is it not? Let me refresh this. It's not giving me the correct value. But yeah, so what you've seen before is the difference of void functions and fruitful functions. Functions that do not give us any output are known as void functions, right? So it performs actions but do not return any value back to us. Usually we want that value to be returned so we can assign it to a bucket. We can assign it to a variable, and then we can use it as we need, right? If we need that, then we need a return function, which is known as a fruitful function. Some cases it returns one value, some cases it returns 2 values or more values, depending on what we're trying to do, okay? So we've looked at an example and talked about it earlier than we expected. So I think everybody's good with this so far, right? Question, Aaron.
So is it advisable to define various functions and just import them?
Very good. Anything that you know you're going to reuse, there's no need to do it more than one time. Just write a function and we use it as much as possible. That's what makes programming fun, and that's what makes Python very powerful. So when we were using Anaconda is huge because it's made up of many libraries. Many libraries means many folders with many different functions. Panda is a library. Panda has many functions that we don't need to start learning from. NumPy, all those different libraries. That's what makes Python powerful, because someone has taken their time to write a particular thing that works, and then it's useful. For instance, last class I showed you how to use a website to be able to write code to pull particular elements within the website, particular tags. Someone had already taken time to create a beautiful soup library. That's what it's called.
And I like that name.
Yes. So yeah, that's,
if I look at the temperature converter that I did,
yes,
I had a function for Celsius.
yes,
I had functions for Fahrenheit within one script.
yes,
Right. So I'm just thinking whether it is possible to have a script for Celsius to Fahrenheit, another one for Fahrenheit to Celsius, and then you import that Celsius one, or vice versa.
that is exactly what you need to do. That's why I mentioned SRP. SRP, single responsibility principle, right? Your function does only one thing and one thing only, so that if it breaks, it does not break everything else. So that's very useful in programming and many things in life. If you want to delegate stuff, tell this child to wash plates, tell that child to rinse plates, tell this person to cook food, tell this person to take care of drinks, and then everything works seamlessly.
Yeah, just that kids don't listen nowadays. So
adults don't listen to. The person that's supposed to be being the goalkeeper wants to be the person that's going to score the goals. So at the end of the day, if you miss scoring the goal, they score on your own pole. So just do your single job and then work as a team, and then the team succeeds. Right? So yeah, that's what we mean by single responsibility principle. And yeah, if you do it that way, you can always nest functions. You can have a function inside a function, as I've shown you before. And it's simple. You know, we are able to use import. So not import, input. Input just takes a value and output back. It does not convert it for us. If you want to convert it, you use int or float or string and so on. So each of those does only one thing, and then you can concatenate them. You can join them together, and then you do many things together. All right, so let's jump into, I think this is our last slide for the day. So this is one thing that you just pointed out, right? When you want to write your program, you have to figure out how you're going to do it. It's very important to have a setup, to have a plan. It's normal in life. Anything you want to do, plan it out. Someone without a plan is someone who is definitely not going to know if they succeeded or they failed. It's okay to fail, but with your plan, now you know you went left, you failed. Next time you're going to, you should go right? So again, have a plan, break everything down. For instance, the first way you can approach this is looking at a top-down design. The top-down design is known as a flowchart, right? For instance, you're asked to enter two values. We've looked at that add function. We want the user to input two values, and then when they get to the menu, they're able to decide if they want to add. If you say, do you want to add, yes or no? If they say yes, we go ahead and do an add function. If they say no, we go ahead and do another function, which is a subtract function. Regardless of whichever way they do it, we output the answer, and then we stop the program. But now we want to be able to have this subtask. This is a subtask, which has a rectangle with two additional tabs at the end. So a subtask here says add number 1 and number 2, and this takes you to the add number subtask. This subtask is going to make sure your answer is equal to number 1 plus number 2, and it returns that answer and stops. The second subtask is subtract number. That's going to subtract your number 1 minus number 2, and returns that answer and stop. So these are the functions. These two functions, add number and subtract number, and this will be the flow of your program. You know, in your program, you're going to come for the integer number 1, come for another integer, and then give them an option to choose if they want to add or subtract. Does this make sense? So that's the way you'd want to look at it. But for programmers, it's always better for them to have a visual representation of the relationship between functions. That's where we come in to this scenario where you have a main function. That main function has one function that's going to get the user's input. Okay, the user is going to input their hours work, and it's also going to get their hourly rate. And then you have another function that's going to calculate the gross pay. And if we want to expand on what we had in the previous slide, we can go ahead and calculate over time. You know, we did all of that in one line. That's not necessarily the best way. We can do all of this and then make it to be single responsibility principle, or put it all in one. So that's how you break down your code into multiple pieces. Now, if you want to say calculate the paycheck, you also need to check out tax withholdings. So to calculate the withholdings, you remove their taxes maybe, and other benefits and so on and so forth, whether it's health and dental and so on. And then you get the net pay from there. From here, you can see these are different functions that you have set up. You know, the functions will have inputs and outputs, but that shows you how they are related. But normally, all of these are in one program. If you have one program that has many functions, you can set it up that way and run it. Rather than having each single file in a folder, you can have many functions within a single file. So that way, you don't have to worry about this one is within this folder and that folder. All the related functions are in one file. Does that make sense?
Can you just repeat that again? I think I missed it.
Okay, so for instance, in our code, we want to be able to calculate the paycheck, right? Or, you know, a particular salary calculation for a company. Rather than having a file that has just get input, another file that has another function for getting the works, another function for gross pay, what we do is we have one file that has all of these functions together, similar to the file that I had. One file that has 10 different functions, which do a particular function, a particular thing.
One file, one folder.
One file.
Okay.
So one file that has all of these, but that file has 10 functions. In this case, I don't know how many functions, but now when you go within that file, you can pick a particular function. So for instance, in Python, you had, let me go back. Oops, right there. In Python, you have all these built-in functions. All of these functions are in one file. So in that file, there's a function for abs, there's a function for max, there's a function for mean, and so on and so forth. So you don't have to go into each folder. So just like pandas, pandas is one folder, but it has a file that is going to, I don't know if that's a better example. Let's say math, for instance. Pandas will be one folder, but it has a file for math. It has a file for, let's say, SQL. It has another file for database stuff. It has several files. Each of those files have functions for that particular purpose.
Okay, I think I get it now. Yeah.
Right. That way you don't have to go from one folder to another to navigate to get it. So that's what makes it useful. And then you can have that relationship in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So now that we've gone through all of that, the next thing we have to do is practice. But before we practice, let me just go ahead and recap on everything that we've done. All right. Obviously, we're going to practice basic functions in real-world scenario. We'll look at math functions that are built in, math functions that are imported, just like we imported that file. We can define our own functions. We can have functions with 0, 1, or more parameters. And we can use keyword arguments, which Fabian loves right now. And we can decide if we want to return value or just print it out to the screen. So at the end of the day, the things that we're able to capture the basics of functions. We looked at the benefits, which we can already start experiencing. We looked at built-in functions that come with the Python installed. And we looked at user-defined functions. We also went ahead to define our own functions. We called functions. You can call functions that are built in, or you can call functions that you yourself define. And we differentiated between arguments and parameters. Parameters go in parentheses. Those are parameter variables that you use within your function. But the arguments are actually the values, the data that is passed into the function. Now we are able to have functions that are fruitful, they return values, or you can have functions that are void, that don't return anything. And throughout, we're able to debug a few error messages that we see when we don't follow the Pythonic way of coding. But let's go back now and look at some basic examples. What questions do you have?